Hi, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about transcoding. We're going to talk about what it is, why you need it, and what are the good and the bad things about it. So let's get going. So, transcoding, what is it, who needs it, and what's the difference between them all? That's what the three questions I want to ask about today. So straight away, let's get straight into it. What is transcoding? Nice and simple. Transcoding is the means with which to change a file, predominantly video files, but there are of course music and photos, but to change a file into a way, an output that is more acceptable to the destination device. It's kind of the main ways in which these days we've managed to synchronize old and new technology together to play media. Because some file formats are either too new or too old to be played. Look at 4K. 4K is massive in every regard. And some files in 4K are just too big for another device to be able to play. So, in order for them to be received by the destination device, be it a smart TV, an iPad, a laptop, a phone, something like that, or a simple data plan, what we need to do is make them smaller. Maybe we have to change the file format from something like MKV to something more acceptable, like an AVI. Maybe we have to change the audio codec. Maybe we have to change the resolution from some enormous 4K file to something like 360p for our tiny little mobile device. That is what transcoding is. The ability to change a file from one format to another, in some regards upscale but predominantly downscale it. And some of the main advantages of it and some of the main ways in which you, the user, will find yourself using transcoding are as follows. One, you're using an older form of a media file, which a classic example would be 4K in H.264. It's a less complex compression technique of 4K media, and destination devices, the ones that don't have a sufficient enough brain in them, and again, some early smart TVs or non-smart TVs overall that just got a bit of internet support, or network support even, these have a huge amount of difficulty playing these files. And even the transcoding of it is just too hard. So that's one of the ways in which transcoding to play that older media makes it possible. But another more popular way is if you've got a NAS at home or the office sitting there going bleep bloop bleep bloop in the corner, and you're on holiday and you want to access a file, but you're not on Wi-Fi, maybe you're on 4G or 3G, and you need a smaller version of that file, not only because of the data plan you're on and the amount of data that's going to get consumed, but because you're on a mobile device, and these things do not handle enormous 4K files very well if you're watching on a screen about that big. So that's one of the ways in which 4K is something you're going to come across in, generally in life. A lot of the time transcoding takes place without you even knowing. There's two terms, offline and on-the-fly transcoding. Offline means it's done in advance. You can action it to gather a bunch of files to be changed in advance. On-the-fly means a file is being transcoded in real time while you're watching it. And for that, you do need a more powerful NAS. Now, the growing rate of transcoding, I've got a whole article on NAS Compares as well, do check it out, with regards to 4K transcoding and the best NAS for that. Transcoding can be broken down into two different groups, first and third party transcoding, which brings us to the third section of this video, namely, what is the difference? Because so many of you out there want to set up a NAS as a Plex media server, and then you find out that the Plex media server, it can't transcode the files, and therefore if it can't transcode the bigger files, then when you're trying to access it on mobile devices via internet services rather than the network, it's not able to play these files successfully. Now that is one of the big ways in which transcoding and Plex have really butted heads, because transcoding, a lot of CPUs, and I'm talking a lot of Intel and AMD CPUs, the higher end ones, actually feature a transcoding engine. That's part of the CPU that's dedicated to rendering and changing of graphical files that will work on transcoding. And now on a NAS, if you're utilizing first party transcoding, and that means you're not using Plex, what you're trying to do is access a file using the native application that the NAS arrives with. If you're doing that, that's when it's first party transcoding. You are using, for example, a Synology application, but Video Station, to play a file on the Synology. So first party, everything is Synology. Now in that sense, the Synology is able to utilize the transcoding engine built into that CPU. The result being that the CPU will use significantly less power transcoding that file. So you'll be able to do much more with your NAS, and the transcoding will be of a far faster quality and higher quality overall. Third-party transcoding is when you use a third-party application such as Plex to play a file on that Synology NAS. The issue is that a number of NAS devices will not by choice, they just can't, aren't able to let a third-party app like Plex access the transcoding engine on the CPU. It's not the end of the world because a number of these devices can still transcode on behalf of Plex, but because the CPU's transcoding engine, that part of the CPU designed for this kind of rendering, is unavailable, it has to use raw power to transcode that file. The result being that whereas with transcoding enabled, you might have utilized 15 to 20% of that CPU, or slightly higher for bigger 4K files, now you're using 70 or 80% of the CPU just to convert this file, and it can really ruin things overall. So I do recommend, if you are looking for a NAS as a Plex media server, make sure you go for one where transcoding is enabled. I've got another video coming up soon where I talk about the best NAS for transcoding, but for now, do focus on the likes of the DS918 Plus, the WD PR4100 and PR2100, and at the other end of the scale you've got a few QNAPs to consider there, the TVS 73 series, the 871. These are sort of NASs out there that are suitable for Plex transcoding, and the daddy of them all, the TS877. It's a Ryzen based CPU. They're pretty new, the Ryzens. They can transcode anything in both Plex and natively, but that is Plex transcoding with your NAS and what it's for and what it does. If you want to learn more, do visit the NAS Compare article in the comments, but otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, chuck me a like and subscribe. Where's the harm? And it keeps this channel going. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.